The rain fell relentlessly that autumn night in New York City. I, John Blackwell, a 60-year-old businessman, watched the raindrops cascade down the window of my office on the 40th floor. The noise of the storm was deafening, but not as loud as the silence that had echoed in my heart for months. I decided it was time to go home. I grabbed my umbrella and descended to the lobby of the building. As I stepped outside, a cold gust of wind hit me, making me shiver. That's when I saw her. A young woman, no more than 25 years old, was desperately running along the sidewalk, clutching a small bundle against her chest. Her wet blonde hair clung to her face, and her clothes seemed inadequate for the harsh weather. "Hey, miss!" I shouted, trying to make myself heard above the roar of the rain. "Come seek shelter here." She hesitated for a moment, but then ran in my direction. As she got closer, I realized that the bundle she was holding so tightly was, in fact, a baby. "Thank you, sir," she said, panting. I didn't know where to hide. I looked at her more closely. Her blue eyes were filled with fear and exhaustion. The baby in her arms began to cry. "Are you both okay?" I asked, concerned. "Can I call someone for you?" She shook her head. "No, there's no one to call. We're alone." Something about that scene touched me deeply. Perhaps it was the vulnerability of that young mother or the baby's cries that reminded me of distant times when my own son was small. "Look," I said, pulling my wallet from my pocket. "Let me help you. Here's 320. It's not much, but it should be enough for a hotel room and some meals." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Sir, I can't accept that. It's too much money." "Please take it," I insisted. "I'm John Blackwell. I own Blackwell Enterprises. Believe me, I can afford to help." She hesitated for a moment, but then extended her trembling hand and took the money. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. My name is Emma, and this is my son, Charlie." At that moment, the baby stopped crying and looked at me with curious eyes. I felt an inexplicable connection to that little creature. "Emma," I said, "are you sure there's nothing else I can do for you? I can arrange a safe place for you to stay, or—" But before I could finish, Emma stepped back. "No, this is more than enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Blackwell. God bless you." And with that, she turned and disappeared into the rainy night, leaving me with a strange feeling of loss and concern. I spent the night awake, thinking about that young mother and her baby. Why were they alone on the street? What led them to that situation? And why did I feel so connected to them? The next morning, I decided to do something I hadn't done in months. Visit my son Michael's grave. He had passed away in a car accident a little over a year ago, and since then, I had buried myself in work, trying to escape the pain of the loss. I arrived at the cemetery around 10 a.m. The day was overcast, but the rain had stopped. I walked slowly among the gravestones until I reached Michael's. To my surprise, someone was already there. It was Emma. She was kneeling in front of the tombstone, crying silently. The baby was peacefully sleeping in a stroller beside her. "Emma?" I called softly. She turned, startled and surprised. "Mr. Blackwell, what are you doing here?" I approached slowly. "This is my son Michael's grave. And you, Emma. How did you know Michael?" Emma was silent for a moment, then stood up and looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Mr. Blackwell, I was Michael's fiancée. And Charlie is his son." I felt as if the ground had vanished beneath my feet. My grandson? I had a grandson? How is that possible? I stammered. "Michael never told me about you or about a baby." Emma looked down. "Michael and I met in college. We fell in love and got engaged in secret. He told me that you two hadn't spoken for over a year due to some disagreements." I nodded, feeling the guilt consume me. "Yes, we had a terrible fight. I wanted him to take over the family business, but he wanted to follow his own path. I was too stubborn and proud to accept his decision." "Michael suffered a lot because of that," Emma continued. "He really wanted to reconcile with you, especially after he found out he was going to be a father. But then, the accident happened, I finished, feeling the tears start to fall. Emma nodded. After Michael died, my family rejected me. They never approved of our relationship and blamed me for his death. I was left alone, pregnant, and with nowhere to go. At that moment, Charlie woke up and began to whimper. Emma picked him up and gently rocked him. I looked at the baby and saw Michael's eyes staring back at me. "Emma," I said, my voice trembling with emotion, "I know I don't have the right to ask this, but would you allow me to be a part of your lives? To help you and Charlie? It's the least I can do to honor Michael's memory." Emma looked at me with a mix of hope and hesitation. "Mr. Blackwell, Please call me John," I interrupted gently. She smiled slightly. "John, I truly appreciate your offer, but I don't want to be a burden to you." "You would never be a burden," I replied firmly. "You are my family, the only family I have left. Please let me help." Emma was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, John. I think Michael would want us to be together." In that moment, I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I looked at Michael's grave and whispered, "Thank you, son. I promise I will take care of them for you." Before we continue the story, what are your thoughts on John's decision to take in Emma and Charlie? Do you think he acted out of guilt or from a genuine desire to help? This situation raises interesting questions about family, responsibility, and redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow our channel and like this video so you don't miss the next chapter of this thrilling journey. And so, in that overcast cemetery, a new family was born from the ashes of tragedy. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to do whatever it took to protect Emma and Charlie. After all, they were my second chance, an opportunity to correct the mistakes of the past and honor my son's memory. As we left the cemetery together, Emma carrying Charlie and me guiding the way, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't experienced in years. The storm from the night before had passed, and a timid ray of sunlight began to break through the clouds. It was as if the universe itself was giving us a sign of hope. "Let's go home," I said softly. And for the first time in a long time, the word home didn't sound empty and cold. Now, it carried the promise of a new beginning. The sun had barely risen when I found myself in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie for the third time. I, John Blackwell, a 60-year-old businessman, was about to face one of the most important days of my life. It wasn't a business meeting or the signing of $1 million contract. It was something much more precious. The first day of Emma and Charlie in my home. "You can do this, John," I whispered to my reflection. "Do it for Michael." The sound of the doorbell pulled me from my thoughts. I took a deep breath and descended the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. When I opened the door, there they were. Emma, with her golden hair shining in the morning sun, and Charlie, nestled in her arms, looking at me with the same curious eyes as Michael. "Good morning, John," Emma said timidly. "I hope it's not too early." "Not at all," I replied, breaking into a genuine smile. "Please come in. Welcome to your new home." As I led them inside, I couldn't help but notice Emma's admiring gaze as she took in the interior of the mansion. Charlie, on the other hand, seemed fascinated by the chandelier in the entryway. "Wow," Emma whispered. It's amazing." "It's a bit over the top, I know," I admitted, suddenly feeling self-conscious about the opulence that had never bothered me before. "But I promise we'll make this place a true home." I took them on a tour of the house, showing them the main rooms and ending in the bedroom I had prepared for them. It was a spacious area, with a king-size bed for Emma and a new crib for Charlie, decorated with teddy bears and colorful mobiles. "John, it's too much," Emma said, tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank me," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. "You guys are family. It's the least I can do." At that moment, Charlie started to whimper. Emma gently rocked him, but the crying only increased. "I think he's hungry," she said, looking a bit anxious. "Is there somewhere I can—" "Oh, of course," I exclaimed, suddenly remembering. "I've set up a space downstairs. Come on, I'll show you. I guided them to a cozy room I had transformed into a nursing area for Emma. There was a comfortable chair, a small table with everything she might need, and even a little fridge to store breast milk. Emma was speechless for a moment. John, this is perfect. Thank you. I left them alone so Emma could feed Charlie, and I headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. As I sliced fruits and made pancakes, I couldn't help but think about how drastically my life had changed in just a few days. When Emma came down with a now content and smiling Charlie, we sat at the kitchen table to eat. The initial silence, heavy with uncertainty, soon gave way to light conversation. So, Emma, I began, trying to break the ice. Tell me more about yourself. How did you meet Michael? Emma smiled, her eyes sparkling with the memory. It was during my first year of college. I was lost, looking for the English literature classroom, and Michael helped me. He had this way about him, this smile that lit up the entire hallway. I felt my heart tighten. That was the Michael I knew, always ready to help others. We started as friends, she continued, but soon we realized there was something more. Michael was special, John, so full of life, of dreams. Yeah, he was, I agreed, feeling tears welling up. I just wish I had. I wish I had noticed that sooner, supported his dreams instead of trying to force him to follow mine. Emma reached out and gently touched my hand. He loved you, John. Despite the differences, he always spoke of you with admiration. Those words were like balm to my wounded soul. Thank you, Emma. That means a lot to me. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activities. I helped Emma settle in, showing her where everything was in the house. I hired extra security, determined to protect my new family at all costs. That night, after Emma had put Charlie to bed, I found her on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. Are you okay? I asked, joining her. She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. John, I don't want you to think I'm here for your money or your position. I loved Michael, and Charlie is all I have left of him. I know, Emma, I replied softly. I never doubted that. And I want you to know that I'm here not just out of obligation, but because I want to be. You are my family now. We sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the weight of that declaration. John, Emma finally said, there's something I need to tell you about my family. But before she could continue, the sound of the phone interrupted us. It was my lawyer. Mr. Blackwell, he said, his voice tense. We have a problem. Emma's family has reached out. They're threatening to file a lawsuit for custody of Charlie. I felt my blood run cold. I looked at Emma, who seemed to sense the nature of the conversation from my expression. Don't worry, I said to her, determination rising within me. I won't let anyone separate you. We're going to face this together. As we embraced, Charlie started crying upstairs. It was as if he could feel the tension in the air. In that moment, I made a silent promise to Michael, to Emma, and to Charlie. I would protect them, no matter the cost. Night fell over the city, bringing with it the promise of turbulent days ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. I had a family to fight for, and that gave me strengths I didn't even know I had. The days that followed Emma and Charlie's arrival in my life were a mix of joy and anxiety. I, John Blackwell, at 60 years old, suddenly found myself immersed in a world of diapers, baby bottles, and lullabies. It was quite a change for someone who had spent the last few decades dealing only with spreadsheets and contracts. One morning, while I was making coffee, I heard Charlie's cries echoing through the house. Emma appeared in the kitchen, looking exhausted. Good morning, Emma, I greeted her, handing her a cup of coffee. Rough night? She nodded, taking a sip of the warm drink. Charlie has colic. We barely slept. Why didn't you call me? I asked, feeling guilty for not noticing. Emma smiled faintly. You've already done so much for us, John. I didn't want to bother you. Emma, I said, placing a hand on her shoulder. You and Charlie are not a burden. We're a family now, remember? We're in this together. At that moment, the phone rang. It was my lawyer, Richard. John, he said, his voice tense. "We have a problem. Emma's family is intensifying their threats. They're claiming that you're manipulating Emma to gain custody of Charlie." I felt my stomach churn. "This is absurd. Emma, you need to hear this." I put the phone on speaker, and Richard repeated the accusations. Emma's face went pale. "No," she murmured. "They can't do this. John has been nothing but kind and generous." "Don't worry," I assured her. "Richard, I want you to use every resource necessary to protect Emma and Charlie. I won't allow them to separate us." After hanging up, Emma looked at me with tears in her eyes. "John, I'm so sorry. My family, they never understood my relationship with Michael, and now they think I'm taking advantage of you." I took her hands in mine. "Emma, listen to me. There's nothing to apologize for. I'm here because I want to be, because you are my family now." In the days that followed, I dove headfirst into the legal battle. I spent countless hours with lawyers, preparing our defense. At the same time, I tried to be the best grandfather possible for Charlie and a constant support for Emma. One night, after putting Charlie to bed, I found Emma in the library, flipping through a photo album. "These are pictures of Michael," she said softly as I approached. "He loved this library." I sat down beside her, looking at the images of my son. There were so many that I had never seen before. Michael smiling at college parties, making funny faces, hugging Emma with love in his eyes. "He looked so happy," I commented, feeling a lump in my throat. Emma nodded. "He was. But there was always a shadow of sadness when he talked about you. He really wanted to reconnect, you know, especially after he found out he was going to be a dad." Those words felt like a knife to my heart. I was a fool, Emma, so focused on my vision of what Michael should be that I couldn't see who he really was. "Don't blame yourself, John," Emma said gently. "Michael understood why you two drifted apart. He just wanted a chance to fix things." In that moment, something inside me broke. The tears I had held back for so long finally came pouring out. Emma hugged me, and we cried together, sharing our pain and love for Michael. When we finally calmed down, Emma pulled something from inside the album. It was an envelope. "John," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "Michael wrote this letter to you shortly before the accident. He never got the chance to send it." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and began to read. "Dad, I know it's been a long time since we've talked, and the blame is just as much mine as it is yours. But things have changed, and I need you to know. I'm going to be a dad. Emma is pregnant, and I can't express how happy and scared I am. This has made me think about you, Dad, about all the times you tried to protect me and guide me. Now I understand better why you did things your way. I don't agree with everything, but I get it. I want my child to know their grandfather. I want us to watch Yankees games together, for you to teach him about business, even though I still think it's boring, and for us to be a family again. I'm ready to talk, Dad, to start over. I hope you are too. Love, Michael." When I finished reading, I could hardly see through my tears. Emma held my hand tightly. "He wanted to come back to you, John," she said softly. "He wanted us all to be a family." In that moment, I made a decision. No matter what Emma's family or anyone else said or did, I would fight with all my strength to protect and love Emma and Charlie. That was what Michael would have wanted. "Emma," I said, my voice steady despite the tears, "I promise you and Charlie that I will do everything in my power to be the father and grandfather Michael wanted me to be. We will face this together, as a family." Emma nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "Together," she echoed. As the library clock marked the hours of the night, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead would be difficult, but now I had a clear purpose. For Michael, for Emma, for Charlie, and for myself, I would become the man my son always believed I could be. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I, John Blackwell, at 60 years old, was living a life I never imagined. The mansion that once echoed with the silence of solitude was now filled with the sounds of baby laughter and lively conversations. One Saturday morning, as I prepared breakfast, I heard Emma coming down the stairs with Charlie in her arms. "Good morning, you two," I greeted with a smile. "How did my little grandson sleep?" Emma laughed. "Like an angel, for about 2 hours straight." I took Charlie in my arms, feeling my heart swell with love. "Come here, champ. Let's let Mommy get some rest." As I rocked Charlie, I noticed Emma looking at the newspaper on the table with a worried expression. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She sighed. "It's just another article about us. It seems like we can't escape the tabloids." I placed Charlie in his high chair and sat down next to Emma. "Don't let it bother you. They'll get tired of it eventually." "It's not just that, John," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "My family. They're using these stories against us. They say I'm using you to gain fame and fortune." A wave of anger washed over me. "Emma, look at me," I said, holding her hands. "We both know the truth. Don't let those lies get to you." At that moment, the phone rang. It was Richard, my lawyer. "John," he said, his voice tense, "we have a problem. Emma's family is escalating their legal actions. They're claiming that you're manipulating Emma and that she's not mentally fit to care for Charlie." I felt my blood boil. "That's ridiculous. Emma is a wonderful mother." "I know, John," Richard replied, "but they're playing dirty. They've discovered details about the accident that killed Michael." My heart stopped for a moment. "What do you mean?" "John," Richard hesitated, "the driver who hit Michael's car was Emma's father." The world seemed to spin around me. I looked at Emma, who was staring at me with wide eyes, having heard part of the conversation. "John," she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "what's happening?" I hung up the phone and turned to her, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "Emma, there's something we need to discuss." In the next few minutes, I told her about the revelation. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she processed the information. I didn't know," she sobbed. "How is this possible? My father, he killed Michael." I pulled her into a hug, feeling her tears soak my shirt. "It was an accident, Emma. No one wanted this to happen." "But that's why they're doing this," she said, pulling away to look me in the eyes. "They're scared you'll find out and sue us." The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. Everything made sense now. The hostility from Emma's family, the urgency to keep her away from me. "Emma," I said, cradling her face in my hands, "that doesn't change anything between us. You and Charlie are my family now. I won't let anything tear us apart." She looked at me with a mix of gratitude and fear. "But John, what if they use this against us in court? What if they manage to take Charlie away from me?" "I won't let that happen," I asserted with determination. "We'll fight this together." In the days that followed, we plunged into an intense legal battle. I spent countless hours with lawyers, preparing our defense. Emma, on her part, faced her own demons, grappling with guilt and fear. One night, after putting Charlie to bed, I found Emma on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. "A penny for your thoughts," I said softly, joining her. She smiled sadly. "I was thinking about Michael, about how happy he would be to see you with Charlie." I felt a lump in my throat. "He would be proud of you, Emma, of the amazing mother you've become." "John," she said, turning to me, "what if we don't make it? What if they take Charlie away?" I took her hands in mine. "Emma, listen to me. I won't let that happen. No matter what happened in the past, what matters is now. You, me, and Charlie, we're a family. And families fight for each other." At that moment, as if to emphasize my words, we heard Charlie crying through the baby monitor. "Go get some rest," I told Emma. "I'll take care of him." As I climbed the stairs to Charlie's room, I felt a renewed determination. No matter what Emma's family or the legal system threw at us, I was ready to face it all. I picked up Charlie, gently rocking him. "It's okay, champ," I whispered. "Grandpa's here, and I promise I'll always be." Looking at Charlie's little face, so much like Michael's, I made a silent vow. I would protect this family with every fiber of my being. not out of obligation or guilt, but out of love, the love that Michael had taught me to rediscover. The battle ahead would be tough, but I was ready. For the first time in a long while, I had something worth fighting for, and I would fight with everything I had. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and actions. I, John Blackwell, at 60 years old, found myself at the center of a battle I never imagined I would have to fight. The revelation about the accident that took Michael's life had changed everything, but my determination to protect Emma and Charlie only grew stronger. One morning, as we were having coffee, Emma looked at me with tired but resolute eyes. "John," she said, her voice firm, "I want to confront my family, face to face." I set my cup down on the table, surprised by her declaration. "Are you sure, Emma? It won't be easy." She nodded. "I need to do this. For Charlie, for Michael, and for us." I admired her courage. "All right. I'll be by your side every step of the way." That afternoon, we met with Emma's family in a neutral office, accompanied by our attorneys. The tension in the air was palpable. Emma's father, Robert, was the first to speak. "Emma, dear, this has to stop. Come home with us. Leave this man alone." I felt Emma tremble beside me, but her voice didn't waver. "No, Dad. John is my family now. He and Charlie are all I have." Emma's mother, Margaret, intervened. "Emma, think carefully. He's so much older than you. What will people say?" I couldn't hold back. "With all due respect, Mom, what people say doesn't matter. What matters is Emma's and Charlie's happiness and well-being." Robert stood up, his face flushed with anger. "You have no right to speak about their well-being. It was because of you that we lost Michael." The room fell silent. Emma looked at her father, stunned. "What are you talking about?" It was then that the truth came to light. In a moment of carelessness, Robert revealed he had known about the accident long before we did. "You knew?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "You knew that it was you who... and yet you're trying to keep me away from John?" Robert seemed to deflate before our eyes. "Emma, I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I was protecting you by keeping you away from the Blackwells." In that moment, I felt a wave of compassion for Robert. Despite everything, he was a father trying to protect his daughter, just like I was. "Robert," I said, my voice softer than I expected, "I understand your fear, but Emma and Charlie are my family now. I'm not here to replace Michael or take your place. I'm here because I love them and want to protect them." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma looked at me, tears in her eyes, then turned to her parents. "Mom, Dad," she said, "I love you, but John has been my support, my rock. He loves Charlie as if he were his own grandson. Please understand that this isn't about choosing sides. It's about creating a bigger, united family." Margaret was the first to relent. With tears in her eyes, she stepped forward and hugged Emma. "Oh, darling, we've missed you so much." Robert, still grappling with his emotions, finally spoke. "John, I'm sorry. For everything. For the accident. For trying to keep Emma away. Do you think we could start over?" I extended my hand to him. "Of course, Robert. For Emma and for Charlie." As we shook hands, I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The battle wasn't completely won, but we had taken a significant step toward peace. In the weeks that followed, we worked together to withdraw the lawsuits and start building bridges between our families. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension and heated discussions, but the love for Emma and Charlie kept us united. One day, while playing with Charlie in the garden, Emma approached me with an envelope in her hands. "John," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I found this among Michael's things. It's a letter. For you." With my heart racing, I opened the envelope and began to read. "Dear Dad, if you're reading this, something must have happened to me. I hope that's not the case, but I feel I need to write this while I have the chance. I want you to know that despite our differences, I have always loved and admired you. Your strength, your determination, your ability to lead. All of that inspired me to become who I am today. I know you'll be disappointed to hear that I won't be following in your footsteps in business, but I hope you understand that I need to forge my own path. And Dad, I have some incredible news. I'm going to be a dad. Emma is pregnant, and I can't wait to see you as a grandfather. Please, if something happens to me, take care of them. Love them as I know you loved me, even when we disagreed. And remember, Dad, life is too short to hold on to grudges. With love, Michael. Tears streamed down my face as I finished reading. Emma hugged me, and Charlie, sensing the emotion in the air, joined us. He knew, I whispered. He knew how much I loved him. Emma smiled through her tears. Yes, he knew. And now, we are fulfilling his wish. We are a family. In that moment, looking at Emma and Charlie, with Michael's letter in my hands, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in years. The journey to this point had been difficult and full of hurdles, but every step was worth it. Thank you, Michael, I thought, looking up at the sky. I promise I'll take care of them with all the love I have. And so, as the sun set on the horizon, I embraced my family, not the one I expected to have, but the one that fate, in its infinite wisdom, had granted me. A family built on love, forgiveness, and the promise of a bright future together. The day of the final hearing came faster than we expected. I, John Blackwell, at 60 years old, adjusted my tie nervously as I entered the courtroom with Emma by my side. "Are you okay?" I asked, noticing her tension. Emma nodded, squeezing my hand. "Yeah, just nervous. What if it doesn't work out?" "It will," I assured her. "We're in this together." The courtroom was packed. I saw Emma's parents sitting across the aisle, their faces a mix of worry and regret. The judge entered, and the hearing began. Our attorney presented our case, highlighting the love and care we had for Charlie. To my surprise, Emma's father stood up. "Your Honor," he said, his voice trembling, "I would like to withdraw our petition. We made a mistake. John Blackwell is not a threat to our daughter or grandson. He is family." Silence filled the room. The judge looked at us, then at Emma's parents. "Well," he said, "it seems we've reached an agreement. Case dismissed." We left the courthouse in a state of shock and joy. Emma hugged her parents, tears in everyone's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for understanding." We returned home, where Charlie was waiting for us with the babysitter. As I picked him up, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. "We did it, champ," I said softly. "We're all together now." The following months were filled with adjustments and healing. Emma and her parents rebuilt their relationship, and I learned to be the grandfather that Charlie deserved. And I, John Blackwell, at 60 years old, felt more alive and happier than I ever thought possible. The family we lost, the family we gained, and the family we were building, all intertwined in a tapestry of love, forgiveness, and hope. And I knew, deep in my heart, that this was just the beginning of our story. So what did you think of the conclusion to John, Emma, and Charlie's story? Did you expect this ending? We would love to hear your thoughts on how the family faced their challenges and whether you think they made the right decisions. Leave your comment below, sharing your insights. Don't forget to follow our channel for more emotional stories like this one. Like this video if you were touched by John's journey, and turn on notifications to be the first to know when we release new content. Your participation means a lot to us.